Hi, Shalom Chaverim. Probably one of the most famous contemporary Jewish songs is Tradition, Tradition. After all, why do we do things? Tradition, Tradition. Of course, I'm not going for Broadway, but tradition is tradition. But have you ever stopped to think about what makes a tradition? I heard a charming story of a young couple where the husband noticed that his wife, every time she would bake a cake, she would take some of the batter and throw it out in the garbage. Just pour out some of the batter and throw it out. And he says to his wife, Rachel, I keep on noticing that before you bake a cake, you always take off a little bit and you throw it out. Why? And she shrugs her shoulders. She says, this is a family tradition, and I never asked. I mean, a tradition is a tradition. So he figures there must be some very, very interesting and perhaps even esoteric reason. So the next time he visits his in-laws, he says to his mother-in-law, my dear mother-in-law, I noticed that your daughter keeps the family tradition of cake. That before she bakes it, she throws off a little of the batter. And the mother says, yes, there is such a tradition. Because I recall seeing my mother do the same. And that's the way I've acted, and my daughter's continuing. Dear mother-in-law, do you perhaps know the reason or the origin? And she says, actually, I don't. I never questioned my mother. Who questions a tradition? But my mom is in assisted living. Why not go with Rachel and visit her grandmother? So they go to assisted living, and Rachel gives a warm hug to her grandma, and the young husband says, Grandma, I want to let you know you have a very loyal granddaughter. She keeps all of the family traditions. And the grandma lifts her head. Yes? Which one are you referring to? The tradition about baking cake. She really faithfully keeps that tradition. And the grandma looks at Rachel and says, that's strange. We don't have any family traditions when it comes to cake. She says, oh yes, yes, Grandma, the custom that has to do with the batter, before you bake it, you do. And the grandmother says, I don't know what you're referring to. What family tradition? I suppose my mind is going. Remind me. She says, Grandma, I always noticed that when Mother would bake a cake, before she actually put it into the oven, she would pour out some. And Mother says that she does it because you used to do it. So the grandma smiles. She says, that's not a tradition. I used to pour out some of the batter because for some reason or other, I always seem to have more batter than space. I had a small pan. Whenever I tried to put the batter into the pan, it overflowed. So I used to pour out a little bit. Rachel laughs. Oh my gosh. Mom used to see you do that. She thought it was a tradition of batter. And I kept the same tradition. So friends, there are traditions. And there are traditions. Here's a different tradition. That when it comes Lag BaOmer, a day that we celebrate the histalkut, or the elevation of a very holy man. One of the great Talmudic greats, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and this takes us back over 1800 years ago. He passed away. He left this world on the 33rd day of the Omer, and there's a tradition that on this day of the 33rd day, on the day that we celebrate his leaving this world to a higher world, we make bonfires. And if you can't make a bonfire in the house, you light candles, or in the synagogue, you increase in light. Where did that tradition come from? And the rabbis actually tell us that this holy saint, this great rabbi, his life on earth was not only a life of holiness and saintliness, but it was a life that actually created light. Yes, wherever he went and whatever he taught, he brought divine light. And the tradition says, and this is actually recorded, that the day that he passed away, he told his students that he wants to teach them secrets of the Torah, the mystical parts of Torah, which will make them warm, close, and filled with the light of the divine. And he began teaching. And as he began teaching these lights of the Torah, physically the room became filled with light. And the tradition continues that though he passed away during this recital of Torah, they didn't even realize that the day had passed, because the sun seemed to stay in the sky much longer than the usual. It was only towards the evening when things accelerated and they realized that they have to bury this great rabbi. So that's a tradition. When a great man, a great tzaddik, Rabbi Shimon, the son of Yochai, brings illumination to the world and physically creates light through the divine illumination that he shared with us, then it becomes a Jewish authentic tradition to create light and to celebrate the light of Torah, and we exemplify it, or we symbolize it with the light of a bonfire or of candles. Now, when we have this tradition, it's not merely to pay homage to this great man. Actually, it becomes a teaching, a very important teaching, a reminder for us to emulate him. It's a reminder that when we live on earth, are we bringing light to the people around us? Are we actually bringing warmth to a cold world? Are we actually creating brightness and an aura of holiness wherever we go? We know this holy tzaddik did, but no one could compare ourselves completely to him, but he does remain a lesson for us and an example. So this Lag BaOmer, all over the world, Jewish people gathered and they sang songs, then the children celebrated and there was music played and bonfires were lit. Much light was created. Our job is to continue creating this light and to expand the light and to expand it into a greater circle and a greater circle of light, until with God's help the entire universe will be aflame with the light of Torah, with the warmth of Torah, and with the beauty of Torah. Let's hope and pray the Mashiach comes very soon. Amen.
Shumayim, Avinu Sheba Shumayim,